Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening, and today I'm going to talk about a few plant varieties that are good for dry conditions or even when we are getting very dry spells heading towards drought conditions. Let us have a look at various plants that are absolutely happy in virtually zero type of conditions. And what we're looking at here are plants which don't tend to grow too big because getting into a large size uses a lot of energy. Things that don't have huge big flowers, because again, flowering is something that uses up a lot of energy. That doesn't mean to say that the gardens won't look interesting. All of these have different ways of showing off and being architectural or showing off in different colours, etc. So let's start with an Origanum. So I've got two different types of Origanum here. We've got Kent Beauty and we've got Origanum vulgare, and this is the common Origanum that you would see out in the fields. Here in the UK, this is still a wildflower and it's a great bee attractant. It loves dry soils, meadow type area, growing amongst grass, but it can be used as a garden plant as well. Tiny little clusters of flower here. It attracts all sorts of insects to it. Really, really great plant. It spreads around really nicely. When the weather gets a little bit hotter, it will drop off the actual flowers that are on here and you get left with the beautiful bracts. And then when the weather gets better again, it starts reblooming. So it has already locked in its own way that it grows, a way of being able to cope with dry spells. And that is what we're really looking for. We're looking for plants that can cope with dry spells, i.e. they go a little bit dormant, they still look attractive, but then come back into their own once the weather resettles. So that one is Origanum vulgare. That one is really good. You can just put it out, mix it amongst echinaceas, grasses, that sort of thing. Makes wonderful clumps and easily divided. Its relative here is a little low growing plant with tiny little leaves. This means it's not going to lose a lot of water out through the leaves. And then when you come to the inflorescence here, what you're actually seeing are modified leaves here on this bit, and the actual flowers are right tucked inside here, and they're tiny little lilac flowers inside those bracts. So the modified leaves are known as bracts. They give you a lot of colour, so when you're looking down on the plant you get to see all of this beauty and structure, and it just stays there looking a really lovely tight clump. This loves dry soil. That's where it's really happy. Free draining dry areas. It copes incredibly well with drought. So once you've got a clump going, that's absolutely fine. Gets a little bit woody in the centre, so what it requires in the autumn time is just a little bit of a tidy up, not too harsh because otherwise it hasn't got protection in the centre. And then when you get to the spring, you can see where all of the growth is coming from the centre of it. You can tidy it right back up and up it comes as a really beautiful plant. I love this one. This is Origanum Kent Beauty. Really super plant there. Then you've got the alliums, not necessarily, well, the bulb type ones are good as well, but so are the perennial type ones, because again, they have a narrow leaf, they make a lovely leaf clump, and then up come these flowers at this time of the year. This one is Canadense. It's one of the species types that a lot of the new varieties of perennial ones are being bred from various species, and this one just keeps on going. It really doesn't mind what it's grown in, and once you get to warm weather it is absolutely fine, and if it gets dry, so that will tolerate dry and drought conditions as well. Allium Canadense. Now I've just done a video on Hylotelephium or Sedum, so you can have a look at that and see what I've said. If you're in the United States, you have got hundreds of these to choose from because there's been an awful lot of breeding. There's breeding over here in the UK as well, but these are incredibly good drought resistant Xera type gardening plants. They're fantastic, and of course you get them at all these different colours of foliage. This one is Black Beauty, so this is one of the newer varieties, and it just is stunning in the foliage before it gets to being out in flower. Dry conditions, absolutely no problem whatsoever, and as I say, there are lots and lots of different varieties out there that you can choose. And if you have a look at what I've got here, they will all mix and match together. I'll put them together in a bunch in a moment so you can see what they would look like. Many of you in the UK will have visited the Chelsea Flower Show earlier this year in May. And to celebrate my personal experience with the show, I wrote and launched my first ever book, 25 Years at Chelsea, going over many of my gold-winning displays, and it also includes secrets for making the best of colour combinations with 80 plant recommendations for problem spots. This is available for sale as a hard copy via mail order in the UK. If you are living in the UK and interested in the book, then visit the link in the description. Now back to the video. Grasses. There are lots and lots of ornamental grasses out there. The small grey-leaved ones or even the bronze-leaved ones are really good for dry areas, for drought tolerance, etc. And they're great because they just, sit there. Yes, they will put on a little bit of a seed head, but what you're growing them for is this lovely mound of grey foliage, which is completely different from your other foliages, and it just gives you a good contrast. So they work really well in those dry conditions. Excellent plants, and especially with grey foliage, they show off other colours. This one is Festuca glauca blue, and that's a really nice form. What are we going to next? Let's go to this one that's in flower. So this is a Saxifraga. This is Saxifraga's Southside seedling. It's just about getting to the end of its flowering. It has a fabulous flowering show here, but then when the flower finishes, you get this really good leaf base, and they just bulk up and make a really lovely evergreen leaf base, and they are just another one of these plants which loves dry conditions and will do really well when it dries out. And you get the beauty of the flower. You can then cut the flower head off. You then get the beauty of this wonderful base rosette, which will bulk up and give you more rosettes at the bottom. The last one I've got is a grey foliage plant, and this one is one of many that you can get in the Ballotas. This is acetabulosa. Now this is a new one to us, and it is actually slightly different from your normal Ballota pseudodictamnus in that these bracts that are going up here are huge, really big. It's got a completely different spike form on it, lovely small grey foliage, and it's just one of these plants which will make probably about 18 inches by 18 inches, 45 centimetres by 45 centimetres, and just loves a sunny position. Really architectural. It's not really flowering, it's putting on these amazing little bracts here, and it can be cut and used for flower arranging if you want to, but in a border, dry sunny border, this is going to look really good. It has an upright habit, and then this basal grey growth will come up and be much bigger. So that is a really good form. Now I said I was going to show you how these could be put together. So if you had your smaller plants at the front, and then you have your slightly bigger ones all in like this, you can see that you can actually mix and match all of this material together like this, and that will make a really good border effect. And I'd probably put them a little bit further apart, but even without them being in full flower, you see that you are getting a beautiful selection of plant material here, and that is what you really want to be thinking about when you're putting the plants together. These will all go in dry, they will all tolerate drought, and they'll be fantastic for you in your garden. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel.